2, I call this meeting to order. Matt, would you lead us in the pledge? Excuse me, is the pastor here? Yes, sir. We got invocation.
Good morning. For the record, Pastor Russ Wynn, Outdoor Church. Good morning, City Council, Mr. Mayor. Let's open up in prayer. Thank you very much. Father, we ask your blessings to rest upon our day today, and Lord, we particularly ask you to pray. We sent a special prayer to those people over in Kentucky, Lord, and Lord, we ask that you would walk with them, be with them as they recover from the devastation over there, as they walk through their loss, Lord. And God, we just pray your comfort and your blessings upon them, our fellow Americans. And Lord, we pray and thank you for this council, Lord. Thank you for the skills and the giftingness that these men and women have to serve us here in our community. Bless them, Lord, as they, with wisdom and guidance, as they look at the agenda here today that's before them. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Matt Feeney, please lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, Debbie, how about roll call?
Councilwoman Carumba. Here. Councilman Purdon. Councilwoman Carr. Here. Mayor Steinmeier.
Here.
Councilman Corey.
Here.
Councilman Gibson.
Present.
Councilman Forbes.
Here.
And Mayor, Councilmember Purdon just mentioned he'll be here momentarily.
Isn't that nice of them? Okay, agenda items, anything changing on the agenda we need to mention? I guess not, we'll go ahead. Okay, mayor's welcome. Well, welcome all you people. It's nice to see your smiling faces this holiday season. 10 days from now, the Savior of the world is going to be born, and we're going to celebrate his birth. Isn't that nice? He's changed the world. Okay, now I need your input. When I campaign, I said, please let me work for you. If you don't let me know what's on your mind, I can hardly read your mind. So please, if you have a chance to comment, please do that. Okay, now we have public comment at number 7 is public comment, except 13A, B, C, D, and E. Otherwise, please comment.
And also item 8A.
8A, okay.
Each of those items, for the benefit of the public, each of those items will have a separate public hearing.
Okay, 7A, please, anybody like to comment? Okay, I guess we'll move on to 8A. Who's going to present that? Okay.
Okay, well, I'll read the first title. An ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs, Florida, providing for adoption of comprehensive plan amendments to create property rights element as required by state law, and furthermore directing transmittal of the amendments to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for intent, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Because this is a comprehensive plan amendment, it's more than just a first reading. You will be actually voting to transmit the draft to the State Department of Economic Opportunity. With that, I'll turn it over today.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Jacqueline Genson for the record. This is the property rights element. It is a new statutorily required element for local governments to adopt as part of their comprehensive plan. It's required based on the 2021 legislature, where they went ahead and passed statute or regulations to go ahead and require that. Essentially what it says is we are to adopt a statement of rights that protects property rights, and local governments have the ability to go ahead and adopt the statement of rights that's included in the actual statute, or they can go ahead and create their own as long as it doesn't conflict with the legislative intent of that statute. We have done some research in terms of other jurisdictions and what they are doing. In terms of Collier County and Lee County, they're adopting essentially the same language, and in discussions with the city attorney's office, that is also what we have recommended to do. So what I have in front of you, it's also within the packet, is the excerpt of the bill that you can see exactly what the statement of rights is. And it's essentially just 4 different elements. And so what we did is just took that exact verbiage and put it into the property rights element. And that would reduce us from any statutory challenges from the legislature, DEO, or any other interested parties or third parties. So essentially, that's really all that it entails. And as the city attorney stated, this process entails us transmitting to the state. They have 30 days to provide us comments. If they don't have any comments, then we'll go ahead and schedule for adoption, and that will be 2 readings before the council.
Okay, public comment on this item? I call for a motion to,
Mr. Mayor, may I have a comment?
sure.
Thank you. I was curious why or how did the local planning agency review vote?
Yes, I apologize. The LPA did find the amendment to create the element consistent with the comprehensive plan. They actually had some other questions that kind of paralleled along property rights, separate discussion relative to eminent domain, which is a whole other section, a statement of facts. But essentially, there was no objection from the LPA, and actually one member agreed that we should definitely adopt it as presented to you today, verbatim for the statute.
Okay, and then my second question, it's Exhibit A. You list exactly the 4 points that we're going to add. And in some ways, to me, it adds ambiguity. Oh, so it's my property, I don't need a permit. It's my property, I can start a bed and breakfast next door, I don't need a permit. So to protect the city even further, would it make sense just to add after each one what we added after point 2? And that is subject to state law and local ordinances to each and every one, so that people realize no matter, it's your property, but you still have to abide by state and local ordinances? Or is it redundant?
I think that comes down to a statutory construction question. So if Mr.
I think I certainly understand Councilwoman Carr's concern. When you read all 4, the absence of the provision that's in the second line indicates that that was left out on purpose. If we were to change it and still have the intent, my recommendation maybe actually now, rather than adding subject to state law and local ordinances to each one, is to the goal itself. After the following rights will be considered in local decision-making, subject to state law and local ordinances, and then removing the second part of paragraph 2. And that way it would apply to all 4 without question.
Oh, I think that's great. I would like that, Mr. Mayor. Make a motion to add that.
I'll second.
Any other comment? Roll call. Vote.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye?
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. We'll make that amendment when we transmit.
I'd just like to make a comment on the whole process here, because I think we should recognize that Bonita Springs, and I am sure many other municipalities and authorities, have consistently and by protocol taken into account the property rights of people who are coming before us for various applications and things. So this, to me, is redundant. I mean, it doesn't hurt you if you're already doing this kind of thing, but it isn't something that is of even minor necessity for Bonita Springs. So that's my personal opinion.
Okay, well, somebody did somebody wrong sometime.
But it's not, maybe. That's why they have,
Well, we just go along to get along, I guess.
I guess.
Can we call for a vote? We did.
We did.
No,
You
the
did
vote, the
vote.
vote.
Okay. Okay. We'll go to 9AB, the consent agenda. City council, the staff has worked very hard to put this presentation together. I make a motion we accept it. Do I have a second?
I'd like to pull E.
Anything else? we accept the rest of them. Vote, please.
Councilman Purdon,
Aye.
I don't- wait, do
Councilwoman
we have
Carr?
a second, just real?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike?
Councilwoman Carr,
Aye?
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilman Corey,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corumba.
Aye.
Okay, 9E. Laura, you want to comment on that?
Well, there was an amendment that was recommending who will be chairing the different committees. And the Historic Preservation Board was a concern because the outgoing president recommended Bonnie Whitmore, but yet I saw that Alan Glazier
Glazier was appointed by the mayor.
oh, the mayor did that.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was no objection among the folks in the room in the historic preservation? Because Alan has resigned, tried to change the meeting to a more convenient time and is in and out. So Bonnie has been there 100% of the time and also is the president of the Historic Preservation Society.
There is no such place. Well, anyways, I appointed Alan Glazier because he is a hometown boy for the last 50 years. He had to work out of town for a while, and he's back now.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, is he the gentleman who quit last year because the chair? So was he on the board? Is he currently a member?
Yes.
Or is he, okay, that's
But
what I
he
was-
did quit.
He's the same guy?
And then he asked to come back, and the city agreed. I was actually the liaison on the time, so the city agreed, but said to him, if you quit again, you're done, because we're tired of the back and forth.
Okay, now I remember that part. Okay,
Okay.
so that's the same person.
Yes, but the mayor feels that, I don't know how long Bonnie's lived here, but, okay.
Okay, yes, Fred?
Well, there's, I don't have a problem with what's going on, but it says the mayor appoints with the consent, or it's kind of like being appointed by the president, but you have to be confirmed by the Senate.
So
We're the Senate.
Councilman Forbes.
Yes?
I've reviewed the actual policies of the council, and resolution 1312, which is the last resolution addressing the appointment of members to the advisory council, provides that the appointment of members is by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. But the appointment of the chairs is solely the authority of the mayor.
Thank
What
you for the
we have, there has been in the past, however, the procedure has been followed, has generally been the same procedures brought for appointment. So there usually has been a vote on it. However, I just want to point out that the actual rules do allow the mayor to appoint.
So we have voted in the past, but it
You
doesn't
have voted
require
in the
one.
past. It's similar to the addendum to the green sheet about it had been past practice for the outgoing chair to name a chair, as there has been in past practice for the council, places where the liaisons have made recommendations. So there's a number of unwritten rules, but the actual adopted policy of the council is to allow the mayor to select.
Well,
The mayor is not only the mayor, but also the liaison, so I defer to you, sir. I just was asking the question.
yes. Alan, I used to work for Alan's father. Alan and his father had built many houses in Bonita in the 70s and 80s. And he knows construction. And so that's where Bonnie is a snowbird at times, and the previous president was gone for months. So Alan lives here now. So that's, do we need a vote on that?
In the past, you always have voted on it, in the past.
I'll make a motion, we approve Alan Glazier. Vote. Second. Mike has a second.
Councilwoman Carr,
Sure?
Mayor Steinmeier,
Yes.
Councilman Corey,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba,
Aye.
Councilman Purdon.
Aye.
May I just make a comment, and it's not particularly in regard to the chairmanship, but at some point, could we just have a review of how people are voted to our citizens' committees? I know that we always say we have so many applications, and then we try to balance the districts, all right? But I think that we might consider doing something a little more proactive about these things, so that when it appears that we're gonna have a vacancy, we could do some kind of advertisement where we reach more people, because it all, you know, we always say there's no application, there's no application. And then I also think that, because the council does meet on the composition of the committee, that we should not particularly advocate for somebody that's our friend or something like that. I think it should be more open. That's my impression, that it's not as clear to the residents of how they could participate. But I would like to try to do something that we can encourage more people, different people coming forward and helping us for these advisory commissions. And I'd just like to have a review, because I can't remember the process myself. I would recommend that.
And if I could piggyback off on that, sir?
Go ahead.
We're scheduling workshops in January, and perhaps we could address even how often certain committees have to meet, and maybe some committees we don't need to put staff and committee members on. So we could discuss the evolution of what's needed and how often one needs to meet.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, on that note, I am a little concerned about the fact that we don't currently have, I believe Jay was the only architect we had on the committee, so, you know, in regards to the relevance of a historic board, I believe one of the things that you statutorily have to do is have an architect actually on it. I think he stayed over to help us get over the hump of the year, but that means we really have a year, because then after that, we don't really have a valid board anyway. So just food for thought, we need to find an architect, or that committee's not even gonna be worth anything anyway.
Yes, I agree with you, and John Dahmer knows a bunch of architects, and Fred knows some architects, and, but we're gonna fill the board up for right now, and we could, adjust it later if we find an architect. I agree, we need an architect.
We will have to show an active recruitment for an architect for the next calendar year in order to maintain our certified local government status.
Okay, thank you, Arlene.
At this point, I think because the motion was specifically on Mr. Glazer, I think you should move to approve the balance.
They did,
Oh,
they did
they
that.
did.
Yeah.
They did that first.
that's-
No,
No,
the
the rest of the
balance of
chairs.
the chairs.
Okay, yes.
So,
Move.
Second.
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilman Corey,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba,
Aye.
Councilman Purdon,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye.
And for information, we only have one vacancy on one committee.
Oh, that will be in the following items when we get to mayor and council member items.
Okay, once, if those are filled with the applications that we have, then we only have one. We have, all our committees are full.
We're in 10.
If you
No,
appoint
Art in
all
Public
3
Places has
applications,
5
it would be a
openings.
full board.
For Historic Preservation Board, yes, correct. When we get to that item, if you were to appoint all 3, you would then have a full board.
Okay, well, I'm out of order here. Okay, Number 11A, here we got Spencer.
Yeah, this my item. I'd like to introduce the Florida State Condominium Ombudsman, Mr. Spencer Hennings. I suggested that he come and present to us all at once instead of doing individual meetings with him, and also so everybody at home can see it on TV and learn about his position and what he can help us do.
Thank you. Good morning,
Good morning.
Mayor.
I appreciate your effort. It's gotta be a thankless job, or pretty close to it. I live in a condominium, it's like living in a zoo.
That's right, it is.
Everybody's got a different idea how things should be run. So I appreciate you taking on this challenge.
Thank you. I appreciate to the city and to the citizens here the opportunity to address the city and sort of go over for 5 minutes what my office does and the resources that we provide. My name is Spencer Hennings. I'm the condominium ombudsman for the state of Florida. I was appointed by the governor July 2020, and I have the entire state as my jurisdiction. Before I get started, I just want to mention that a condominium is a form of legal ownership. It's a legal structuring. It doesn't refer to a multifamily physical structure. It doesn't refer to a high-rise building. So in Florida, we actually have many single-family neighborhoods that are condominiums. So in effect, what I'm saying is you may have more condominiums in the city than you actually realize.
I mean, homeowners association is a condominium?
It's not a condominium. It's different. So homeowners associations are governed by Florida Statute 720, condominium 718, and that decision is made by the developer when the community was created. So let's see if this works. Okay. Very quickly, here's the mission statement for my office. It's to deliver prompt, professional, and courteous service as a neutral, informative, and accessible resource. What does that mean exactly? Okay. So the office was created in 2004 because there's so many condos here in Florida, and there's only more by the day. There's many things that were happening that were sketchy, perhaps illegal, and the legislature felt we needed a liaison. We needed someone that could help guide our condo owners. So the office was created in 2004. 718-502 is the Florida statute that governs, if anyone's curious, that governs the office and the powers and the duties. As I mentioned, it's a governor-appointed position. It has to be an attorney. There's some language in there about other business practices that are prohibited. Main office is in Fort Lauderdale. So we do have an office in Tallahassee as well, but our main office is in Fort Lauderdale, and we did that because, well, there are a lot more condos in South Florida than there are in Tallahassee, so we thought it made sense for me to be in South Florida. In addition, as I said, we have a Tallahassee office. We have an office now in Sunny Isles Beach and Miami Beach, and that was because the cities have very graciously offered me space in their city halls that I go to and assist their residents on an as-needed basis. The four things that I want to mention, and we'll get through this very quickly because I know you have a lot on the agenda, is election monitoring, education, dispute resolution, and legislative recommendations. This is really what I do. Election monitoring. So the legislature has created a mechanism for condo owners to request a monitor to physically go out to their association and request a state-appointed monitor to conduct their election. So if you're not familiar with condos and HOAs, there's a board of directors. They're required to be corporations. So these communities are actually businesses. They're corporations, and they have a board of directors. The board is the entity that runs the association on a day-to-day basis. So we believe that ensuring the right people are on the board, the people that get the votes, is of utmost priority. So essentially, unit owners can send a petition to my office saying, we want a monitor. And what the law requires is 15% of the unit owners in the association to sign that petition. Or 6, whichever is greater. It's almost always 15%. There is a small fee for the election monitoring that goes to the monitors. They're independent contractors with my office. The state does not take a cut out of this. After the election, the monitor submits a report to my office giving a play-by-play of everything that happened at the election. If, for example, if a ballot had to be disqualified, why that happened. And we make sure that the entire process is 100% fair and 100% transparent. That way, afterwards, there's going to be no complaints. There's going to be no allegations that something improper happened at the election. And believe it or not, to everyone listening, there's actually quite a bit of litigation and arbitration that happens because of condominium elections. So if we get it right the first time go around, we're saving everyone a lot of time and money. Next, I'll mention education. So I have a great staff. We have about 30 staff members in my office throughout the state. And on a day-to-day basis, we're answering the phones and emails, providing education based on what your rights and what your responsibilities are living in a condominium association. We get everything that you can possibly imagine. People call in with, you know, it's an adventure every day, as I'm sure you can imagine. So a lot of what we do is help people understand and guide them through their rights and their responsibilities. With that educational approach, we attempt to actually resolve disputes. So I am an attorney, but I'm not a judge. I'm not an arbitrator. I can't make legal conclusions, but a lot of times I can get issues resolved just by a couple phone calls, and that's what we attempt to do. Again, to try to save people having to litigate those issues. And we're very successful with that approach, just by using an educational approach. I also work with state attorneys and police departments throughout the state if we uncover illegal acts. It's also my responsibility to recommend enforcement action to the DBPR. My office is administratively located within the DBPR. I should have mentioned that initially. Lastly, I'm responsible to make recommendations both to the governor's office and to the legislature on how we can better protect and serve our condominium owners. Couple points just about general functions. As I mentioned, we assist with questions and concerns, provide references to other agencies just to help people guide people through their issues. We explain and clarify complex issues, legal issues in condos, resolve disagreements. We provide the election monitors, as I went over, and of course, educational material. And that was the quickest I've ever gone through this PowerPoint.
Yeah, very good.
But we finished, so thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, all right, the condominium I live in, they can rent 3 one-month rentals a year.
That's the rule in your governing documents?
Yes.
Okay.
Who enforces that? The board of directors?
Correct. So that would be a rule that is not from Florida statute. That is something that your association has enacted in its governing documents. So the state's not going to enforce something that you've privately enacted in your association. That would be something that's up to your association to enforce.
Okay, another question number 2. Let's say the neighbor doesn't pay, he rents his unit, he doesn't pay his tourist development tax. Who's gonna collect that? Who's responsible? Is the association responsible for a tourist development tax and the state sales tax being paid?
That's a good question. So the first tax you mentioned, I'm not familiar with. Is that something that's local?
The local tourist development tax, yes.
So that's
And
not...
there's a state sales tax. of
Yes.
6.5%.
Sure. So off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure how the enforcement of the collection of that tax would work from the municipality. If the city attorney or Carly wants to chime in on that. Yeah.
I can clarify. On the tourist tax, the county clerk of courts actually gets that money.
The tax collector is the one who collects it. The responsibility, though, is actually on the individuals
They've got an
renting the facilities.
investigation arm, the clerk of courts.
So my answer would be, I don't know, but I could figure that out
And
for you.
And the state tax, who collects that? Sales tax.
That's probably still collected from the tax collector, but again, the responsibility is not on the association unless the association itself has a role in the rental of units.
Or if the association owns a unit and rents it.
Correct. So there are many there are many hotels that actually have condo units, but the hotel itself also rents out the condo units when people are out. So in that case, the obligation will be on the owner and the hotel in those situations.
Okay, I just want everybody to pay their fair share, so to speak.
Fair enough.
I know the state lives on sales tax, and I like it that way.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yes.
Amy?
No, I just think that, I assume we're gonna have some kind of a link to this on our website.
Correct,
Yeah,
we'll provide
okay.
information
Yeah, no,
to the
I really appreciate your coming out today, and as I said, I thought you were newly appointed, But when you told me, since 2004 was when they had the law, is that what you told me?
So the office was created in 2004. Governor DeSantis appointed me about a year and a half ago, July 2020.
But I mean, honestly, I can't believe I've been here in Florida since 2008. I had no idea that it existed. I mean, that doesn't mean that, you know, other people are more aware, but I think I'm glad you're doing this outreach, because I assume there other people are not aware of that facility, and if we could help in any way, it would be great.
And you're under the Department of Agriculture, is that correct?
No, sir, Mayor, I'm under the Department of Business and Professional Regulation.
Which is under the Agriculture. Secretary of Agriculture?
It's under the CFO. It's under
Chief Financial Officer for the state.
Jimmy Petronis' office.
Yes, Fred.
Yeah, I would urge my colleagues to talk to their people that they are in good relationships in the legislature and get them to pass a similar law for HOAs. Because there's as much stuff that goes on that shouldn't go on in some HOAs as there ever is in a condo. But right now, there is no similar function in the state. They have to pass a law to get it.
Yes, unfortunately, there is no counterpart to my office for HOAs under Florida Statute 720. I would love to be able to help HOA associations, but that's not what the law says.
The HOAs are free lines, whatever they want.
Yes, Mayor.
Nobody's disciplining them, no, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks, Fred, I like that information, yes.
Just write them, talk to them, whatever. We all have friends on the legislative, so.
Okay, anything else? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Very interesting. Okay, 12A, appointment of chairs.
All right. No, Mr. Mayor, the next two items are appointing and reappointing of the board memberships. The first one is appointing members to the City of Bonita Springs Land Use Hearings and Adjustment and Zoning Board of Appeals.
I motion we elect Steve Lohan.
Actually, we're gonna pass that, we have some ballots for you.
For you.
And then when the ballots are tabulated,
Of zoning
assuming there's no ties,
Thank
you can move the slate.
Thank you.
So zoning, we elect 3 people, correct? 3 openings, 3 wish to be reappointed.
Yes, you have 3 members whose terms are expiring, but all 3 have expressed an interest in staying and serving.
So what do you just, put a check on there?
Yes.
With Steve,
The three that you want.
We do it one at a time, right?
Yes.
Want to send them now? That way Deb doesn't, she doesn't need to walk that way down.
Somebody
I only did 2, Fred.
write my name on it.
You need one more also.
You gotta click, yeah, you gotta pick 3.
No, I don't have to vote for
Choose-
it.
Okay.
You don't have to vote for 2.
he wants to leave it blank, so.
I think we have to vote for 3.
Choose for LPA?
No, this is for zoning.
Choose.
3.
Is that true, Derek?
All right,
It says it on there, so zoning,
Well, there's-
choose 3, LPA, choose 4.
Yeah, so you have 4 applications for the zoning board,
Well, these are
and,
real.
and 3, of the 4, 1 is a new appointment, 3 are reappointments, so since there's only 3 slots, I recommend picking 3. If you choose to abstain from a vote and say, I don't want to appoint or reappoint that person, I would just not check anything. Does that clarify it?
So we don't have to vote.
You don't have to vote to reappoint someone, you're effectively voting against them, their appointment.
But you have to cast 3 votes.
Correct.
Yeah. Somebody only voted twice. That's what the question was
All
about.
right, we're good. Thank you. We're cool.
Right, okay, here we go. Moving along here, folks.
And now we have another,
B, 12B,
Well, no, we haven't voted on the slates. We're wait for
okay.
the city clerk to tabulate everything.
Should we have an election monitor?
where did Spencer go?
I think we got about 20 out there.
No, 20.
It looks like Linda Waterhouse, Russ Wynn, and Anthony Rassio.
Okay.
And so a motion?
All right, so it looks like we have the ballots tally up to reappointing the 3 members. And so I would ask now for a motion to confirm the results.
Motion to confirm.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Caramba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
And on that same item, you also have a local planning agency appointments. You have 3 reappointments and 2 new applications. So we're looking to fill 4 slots.
So we have 1 extra.
Correct. So again, only choose 4 in this instance.
Mm-hmm. Can I pass them?
Oh, wait, I did 4.
It's like an assembly line here. Keep things, keep it moving. All right, we'll tabulate that, please.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody ready for a break?
No,
No.
keep going.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Everybody okay? All right.
If just to keep things moving, if you want, we can move on to the next item while she's tabulating those, and then we could have all of those votes being tabulated, and you guys could take a break and then vote to confirm both rounds, if that makes life easier
Yeah.
to have a break and keep the meeting moving.
I have it tallied for the local planning agency. It's Linda Schwartz, Bob Lombardo, Don Colapetro, and Steve Lohan.
Okay, so you reappointed all 3 members and recommending Steve Lohan for appointment as well. Can I get a motion to confirm that result?
Motion to confirm the results of the ballot.
Take the count, right?
Councilman Gibson seconded. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Caramba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Okay, your next item is resolution appointing reappointing members to the Historic Preservation Board, Art and Public Places Board, Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee, Technology Advisory Board, Tree Advisory Board, Outreach Advisory Board, and in all instances, these are reappointments, except for you have one new application. No, I believe we have two applications. We have an application from a Ruth Condit, and we have an application from a Howard Lowe.
And three, I'm sorry, the addendum.
Do we have,
The addendum includes a third applicant.
do we vote for all four?
You'll be voting on all four. Mr. Lowe, I believe, is applying for two, one or the other, which is Historic Preservation or Technology Advisory Board, and then you have,
What is Arts and Public Places? How many do we pick? One?
No.
each ballot should be accurate, so in each instance, the ballot should list you who is new, who is reappointing, and how many are,
And if it says nothing, that means they're the
That's a
only
reappointment.
options.
So for Historic Preservation, you have one reappointment, Mr. Glazier, the chair, and you have three applications. Mr. Lowe, Ms. Conduit, Mr. Noor. And you have three openings. For Art and Public Places, you have two reappointments, Mr. Fullock and Ms. Bridges. For pedestrian bike safety, you have two reappointments. I'm not gonna try to butcher either name. For Technology Advisory Board, you have 7 reappointments and one new application. And that is Mr. Lowe, who is also applying for Historic Preservation. And then for Tree Advisory, you have 3 reappointments, Mr. Brown, Ms. Valentine, and Ms. Lee. And then for Outreach Advisory, you have 8 reappointments.
So 7 out of 8 for the
For-
technical.
So how many on the tree advisory board? All of them are? We
Those
got-
are all reappointments, yes.
Oh.
If you choose not to reappoint one, then just don't check their name.
And the Outreach Advisory Committee was the only one that didn't say when it was termed out. When are they termed out?
Never.
In 2 years, 2 years.
And that'll be corrected on,
I'd say after you've completed your ballots, maybe then would be a time for a little break.
Was outreach committee, all these are just available reappointments, right?
Apparently.
Pardon?
Yes.
Yes, it's just for reappointments.
Did we say we were gonna take a break after we hand in these in?
I would recommend one if that's the desire of the council.
Yeah, it's all right with me.
They,
We're back in order, thank you.
we had a tally error on one of the, so of the boards, Arts and Public Places, Bicycle Pedestrian Safety, Technology Advisory Board, Tree Advisory, and Outreach Advisory, all the existing members were reappointed, none of the new applications got on. And I would recommend a motion to confirm that vote.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Debbie, roll call.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
And now, council, on the Historic Preservation Board, we actually have more people voted on by a majority than we have seats for. So what we're doing is we're gonna have new ballots created, and we'll move that to later on in the meeting. I don't want to hold up the rest of the agenda. So what I would ask is just for historic preservation that we hold that, we table that for now, and we bring that back when we have the new ballots, and we move on to the next item.
Okay, good.
13A,
13A, yes. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs, Florida, adopting the 2021-2022 five-year capital improvement annual update, providing for our legislative findings, providing severability, providing for codification, providing for effective date. This is a statutory requirement that we update our five-year CIP every year before the annual end. There are no changes to the CIP. This is the same CIP you saw during budget.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, and I would just see if there's any public comment.
Public
Seeing none.
comment? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman-
Vote.
Can I
Yes.
just say one thing, sir? There was also an ask that instead of coming every 5 years, we just automatically do the 30-year. same.
I'm sorry, this is a CIP. This is not BSU.
Oh, okay, okay.
Councilwoman Corumba.
Aye.
Councilman Purdon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye?
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilman Corey.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Okay, setbacks on alleys.
Yes, this is this is
13B.
second reading and public hearing on an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs, Florida, amending the Bonita Springs Land Development Code, Chapter 4 zoning, Section 4-1893, street setbacks to establish setbacks for alleys, providing for conflicts of law, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, and modifications that may arise at public hearing and an effective date.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Jacqueline Genson for the record. This is a staff-initiated requested amendment. So what's happening is we have alleys within areas outside of the downtown area. By definition, our code classifies alleys as a street right-of-way. And so what happens is, in situations such as these on the screen, where you have lots that have alleys in the back, accessory structures have to be set back 20 feet from the alley. And so what happens is, in instances where there is no alley, typically people get a 5-foot rear yard setback for accessory structures. But when you have a alley, which we classify as a street, it becomes a 20-foot rear setback. So it really substantially reduces a property owner's right to utilize their property. We did bring this to the LPA. They had no objections to staff's requests. Most of the discussion centered around uses of alleys themselves. We are not proposing to change anything regarding the alley. The alley maintains as it is. This is just to go ahead and allow a property owner to utilize their property more efficiently and effectively.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a question. Now that's 5 foot on both sides of the alley?
This is
So
just
it's
for
10%?
a rear yard setback. So essentially, we're treating it as if the alley was not there. And in most cases, these alleys, they're just what we would call paper alleys. They're not utilized for actual vehicular traffic. It's just these olded platted communities. The way they were done back in the days is there were alleys in the back. And in certain parts of the city, there have actually been petitions to vacate alleys. In this instance, we really want to go ahead and reserve that right for the city to still maintain the alleys in case we do need them. So, but in any instance, this is a 5-foot rear yard setback, because the alleys in most cases are along the rear yards. In some cases, you might have a side alley along the side property line, but the side setback would not change either.
But the neighbor on the other side has a 5-foot setback also.
Yes, sir.
So in reality, it's 10 foot.
Well, you'd have the alley in between. So in this case, we have a 20-foot alley. So it'd be 5-foot setback off on the property to,
Instead of 40 feet, you'd have 10 feet with the two of them, together.
so for example, this is a 20-foot alley on the screen. An accessory structure on this lot could be 5 feet off the property line. If this neighbor wanted to put an accessory structure on this side, it would be 5 foot off the rear property line. So all we're talking about is just the setback from the alley in itself.
Okay, sounds good to me. We had a motion and a second.
Any public comment?
Public comment? Roll call vote?
Councilman Purdon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye?
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilman Corey.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Corumba.
Aye.
13C.
Okay, this is a second reading and public hearing on an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs approving the petition of Bonita Springs Utilities extending the term of the franchise in Bonita Springs ordinance number 0214 and providing for an effective date.
Okay, who's going to present this?
I
John?
think Mr. Jenkins is gonna come up.
Good morning, council members, mayor, members of the public. John Jenkins, Executive Director, Bonita Springs Utilities. Pleasure to be here today. We are required by the terms of our franchise with the city and the county to file a notice of intent to renew every 5 years. It's a procedural requirement, and that's what we're here to discuss today. I've got a short presentation. I know you all are quite familiar with BSU, but for the record, we can put some information out. Also, I have with me today Brian Farrar, President of our Board of Directors, and Don Thompson of Henderson Franklin, our General Counsel. And 50 years of service, it's notable that the company was incorporated in 1970 and provided its first service to members in 71. We had hoped to roll out a nice recognition of that with our members, but COVID didn't allow that over the last year or two. But it's something we're very proud of, and we think that the public should be as well. The company was formed by concerned citizens who wanted a better water product here. This was 30 years before the city incorporated, and the county didn't have any particular infrastructure in the area. The support was garnered from the residents. As you can see, they had an effort to secure 100 commitments to tie into a new water system. If they could get that, then they could afford to borrow the money from FHA and build the first water plant, which was on the site that we occupy today on Terry Street. And here's a groundbreaking on the new water plant. And these were the community leaders of their day, as you are today. This is Arnold Glazier, Paul Schmidt, Byron Lyles, Harvey Haynes, Ben Nelson Sr. I mean, these were the leaders of their day. And this was one of the early pictures of the original water plant out there on East Terry Street. And we've come a long way in 50 years. We've got a new customer service center. The company has worked hard to keep up with the tremendous growth that the community's experienced over that time frame. And we've constructed state-of-the-art facilities, including keeping up with efforts to find new and sustainable water sources. We went to our reverse osmosis plant back in 2004. Also on the wastewater side, we've got our 2 facilities, and we are 100% reuse of our reclaimed water and our biosolids. So we are a member-owned cooperative, so we don't just consider ourselves a franchisee. We are a community resource. We're a community partner. We are open to our members. We have meetings twice a month, public meetings, as the city does for our board of directors. We have elections every year, so we consider ourselves quite accountable. We have a 9-member board, and they're 3-year terms, so every year we have 3 members up for re-election. So we feel like the community certainly has a say in how we run and who is elected to run our board. We also consider ourselves customer-centric. I mean, where else can you walk in and pay your bill or talk to somebody about a utility problem you have? We've got, where else can you call up and get a live body? We have our drive-through with, where can your dog get a bone or your kid get a lollipop? I mean, there are some things we've advanced with, and other things where we feel like we've kept that community feel. And who does run our board, our company? It's our 9-member board, and if you look at these names, we've got 2 gentlemen who are also on the fire commission. We've got Brian, the former president of the Chamber of Commerce and elected member of the Mosquito Control District. We've got Vince Marcassani, who serves on your technical advisory committee, a retired PhD. We've got Bob Bachman, longtime businessman. Of course, Ben Nelson, former council member and mayor. Mike Malloy, a retired electric industry executive and engineer. Paul Atwood, a retired geologist with the state of Florida. I don't know if I missed anybody, but you can see these are your neighbors. These are our community leaders that assist with our efforts and represent our members. And of course, we believe we produce a very good product with reliable service. We've got award-winning staff and facilities. Our information, we try to be as open as possible. We've got a website that provides our consumer confidence report, provides information on water quality, provides information on a variety of our efforts. We've got GIS maps that show where we're undertaking construction in the community. We meet or exceed all regulatory requirements in what is a heavily regulated industry. And we think we do it by all providing good value to our members. So we have rates that are actually slightly below virtually all of the area utilities, save one. We've had no rate increase since 2010. We are funded with no taxpayer dollars. It's all revenue generated by our members. And we initiated in 2018 our capital credit retirement program. So we keep track of all of our usage and how many dollars are paid by a given member each year. And to the extent that those dollars are greater than what we need to run the company as a not-for-profit, we keep track of those, and over time we retire those and we give those dollars back to our members. So we're very proud of the fact that since 2018 we've returned $11 million to our members, dating back 25, 30 years. And we plan for the future. I mean, we think of ourselves as an integral part of the community. Infrastructure renewal and replacement. Years ago, the company spent money and borrowed money to build facilities to keep up with growth. As we pay down that debt, we're now taking those funds and we're trying to direct them to renewal and replacement so we maintain our infrastructure. We know there are a lot of concerns with quality of infrastructure throughout the country, and we want to stay on top of that. We're a relatively young community and we want to keep it that way in terms of our assets. We plan for long-term water supply sustainability. In 2018, the Water Infrastructure Act required us to conduct a risk and resilience assessment, which we've done. We've identified areas where we are doing well and areas where there's room for improvement, and we're working on that. We, of course, have a long-term master plan that helps us identify where we need to continue to grow, and we've got a capital improvement program and a budget that goes out 10 years, which identifies necessary improvements to our plant and our field assets, so we stay on top of things. And finally, we've got the events of the day, the current issues, cybersecurity, IT and OT, our infrastructure, what we have within our fence, how we isolate our operational facilities versus our business side, our IT. And we undertake risk assessment in order to address those issues. So we think of this, appreciate the opportunity to come here, but it's really not necessary in the sense that if there are any issues that are of concern to the public or the city, you know where to find us. We're here to address those issues. We've got this procedural requirement today, but we're pleased to answer any questions you have. And thank you for the opportunity, and we ask you to go ahead and renew the franchise.
John, you've been associated with the water company how many years?
Well, I've been executive director for 6. It's taken its toll on me here, but I've worked as special counsel with BSU going actually back into the late 1980s.
And Don Thompson's been with the water company quite a while also?
Yes, he's been general counsel for some...
Since 1998.
1998, over 20 years.
So we got homeboys, a bunch of homeboys, all right.
Motion to approve.
We need public comment on this?
You do need public comment.
Any public comment?
Good morning, council. Good morning, members of the public. There's some things I can't say
Your
here
name?
today. Jude Richvale from Old Bonita. There's some things I cannot say today because we're in litigation with BSU about elections. But what I can say is this. I urge the city council to only renew the BSU franchise on their contingent on their coming up with a credible plan to run honest elections. The city has an undeniable responsibility to act in this matter. The election discrepancies that have occurred in multiple years have not been explained in a credible way. As you may know, the discrepancies have not been explained after 3 years of litigation and continued BSU stonewalling. Based on attorney Mr. Cloud's report that the city hired, the city has the authority to do this as it is in the public interest and does not dictate to them in their main line of business. I think honest elections are in the public interest. Does anyone else here disagree, perhaps? The BSU board has recently considered outsourcing their elections to a third-party company.
I'd let him complete his comments. At this point, I don't have any answers.
Okay.
The BSU board has recently considered outsourcing their elections to a third-party company. As far as I know, no decision has been made on this. This could be one possible option for them. I think that the BSU plan should be reviewed and approved by a special committee set up by the city within 1 month. Among sought reforms, BSU election business reply ballot envelopes should not be white and transparent with a backlight. Ballot return envelopes should be mailed to a lockbox with instructions to be opened only in the presence of all the candidates and their representatives, or their representatives. No relatives or associates should be appointed as election monitors as in the past. All BSU candidates should be able to audit the election process and be present at the counting of ballots if they so desire. All candidates will automatically receive full cooperation from BSU in this matter. All people who receive BSU water should receive a ballot, regardless of whether they receive a bill from BSU directly or from their HOA. All foreign BSU water users should receive clear and unambiguous instruction in how to cast their ballots. Anyone involved in BSU election fraud should be criminally prosecuted with the city as an involved and participating party. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Don Thompson, a rebuttal on that?
Mr. Mayor, I respectfully, I would request that you just let the public comment finish before having any additional comments from BSU or from staff.
Okay.
Just let it all get
We
out.
got more I thought, since he's in litigation against us, or against
No.
the water company,
Mr. Mayor, they're in litigation with BSU.
so he can say whatever he wants here.
It's public comment, it's relevant to the item that's under consideration. I would allow the public comment to continue, and then we can address any issues at the end.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Dave J., longtime Bonita Springs resident. I'm not involved in litigation, but I am involved in good government, and this is a particularly important situation that you have as a responsibility as City Council to push for good government. This is the third time in 10 years that I've been asking the Bonita Springs City Council, Lee County Commissioners, to realize they're the only consumer protection for Lee County ratepayers. You're being asked to vote on a 5-year renewal on top of a 25-year franchise for Bonita Springs Water and Sewer Monopoly. I respectfully request, as I did in 2011-2016, that the BSU Monopoly franchise extension vote include a ratepayer Bill of Rights. I urge you to require the BSU Water and Sewer Monopoly to voluntarily adopt these ratepayer Bill of Rights as a condition of renewing the Water and Sewer Monopoly franchise. The Bonita City Council and Lee Board of Commissioners can and should adopt good government requirements of the Water and Sewer Monopoly franchise, as these boards do with the solid waste, trash, and recycling franchises, cable franchises. The Bill of Rights, most important issue, one person, one vote, not one vote per water line. Allow citizens to run if they come from a multifamily community serviced by a community water line. BSU does not allow candidates to run for the board or to vote on these elections unless they have a single water line house. BSU says that they're accountable to the citizens. How can they be accountable when almost half the people in Bonita Springs live in a condo, an apartment, or a mobile home. Half cannot vote. They've got a shared water and sewer line. Foreigners can vote if they have a single water line, but not Americans. It's unfair, it's undemocratic, it's un-American. The second issue would be let the sunshine in, Florida sunshine. Mr. Jenkins says that he's here to answer any questions. He's not answering my questions because I'm not a member. I've filed public records requests, and he refuses to comply, absolutely refuses to comply. So why not require the sunshine of BSU Water and Sewer Monopoly to comply with the Florida Sunshine Laws, Freedom of Information, Open Meetings Act, and require disclosure of conflicts of interest? Prohibit take-home cars for personal use by the director and other staff. He refused to provide for that. Anti-nepotism, no hiring of family members or employees or contractors. Require competitive bids for professional services every year or two. BSU generates a lot of reclaimed water. It's not good enough, safe enough, healthy enough for people to drink, but it is good for irrigation. And irrigation water is expensive. We've seen it in the middle of 41 in Naples area, but it's not here. BSU sells it to one no competitive bid company. Pension share costs require BSU employees to pay 3% of their pay to the pension, just like all other public employees, including this board and the city employees. Require health care cost sharing. No automatic rate increases. All increases should be submitted to the Public Service Commission that has the scientists, engineers, and economists for jurisdiction. These items I've submitted to you by email, and I hope that you'd consider that before you vote for another 5-year extension. Thank you for your consideration.
Good morning, City Council members. I haven't said a word yet. Ben Hershenson, Avonlea Drive. I've come here every so many years, and I've always turned my faucet on. I like the water, so I support the renewal of the 5-year franchise agreement. I do have one question, though. I just wonder if John or somebody could, at some point, talk about whether or not there are any plans for the future to extend the reclaimed water for the use of irrigation. The primary reason there is that, as more developments keep on happening, again, they seek the same source. They drill wells to aquifers, and, how much water is going to be there, 10, 15, 25, 50 years from now. So I'm just wondering if there are any plans for the future for extending the reclaimed water to some, managed communities. I don't care how far out it is, but is there a long-range plan to do that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Anybody else? Public comment? Yes, sir. Hang on, Don. There's somebody coming in.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I just came here.
Your name, sir?
Hi, my name is David Pearson. I live on Jolly Roger Lane. I'm glad we had this presentation today because I've actually been dealing with the water company on an issue. They're installing these smart meters within the neighborhoods. They're changing the piping, installing these water smart meters. And there's a current situation. These things are hazardous to health. They put out frequencies that are not good for human health. And FPL, other agencies allow you to not have them installed in your home. I'm in a situation where this is currently being denied as a right, and just something that's been presented. I've presented some information and just trying to get that as an option for the community. Because this is going to be throughout the entire Bonita Springs community. We'll have these smart meters at all times. So just something to consider, and just wanted to see what if that would be an option for community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Don, would you like to answer that man's question a little bit?
Okay. For the record, Mr. Mayor and council members, Don Thompson with the Bonita Springs office of Henderson, Franklin, Starnes, and Holt, and we are general counsel for Bonita Springs Utilities. Thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it. I won't answer his, but John, I think, will when I'm done, so, and I apologize, I didn't get his last name. With respect to Mr. Richvale's comments, it's not appropriate for me to address those here at, publicly. That is in litigation. It's been going on for some time now. And our policy is we're not going to address that in public with respect to the ongoing litigation. So with all due respect, I don't think it's appropriate for me to get into that. I'll address a few of Mr. Jay's comments. First of all, with respect to one person, one vote, that has been before this council before. We have submitted an opinion from a tax attorney for Bonita Springs Utilities. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a tax attorney. That's not where my experience lies. But she has made it very clear, and I think it's in the city's records, that that is the appropriate way to do it. It's not one vote per line, it's one vote per meter. And it is our position, and we've been advised, that in order to properly handle the voting for a nonprofit like Bonita, a co-op like this, it needs to be one vote per meter, not one vote per person. Our contact is only with the customer who has the meter, not with the other folks. And a lot of these condominiums do have a single meter and not a meter for each unit. Some do have a meter for each unit, and where that's the case, then each one of the customers with the meter does get a vote. But that's something that we contend is required under the tax laws. With respect to the Sunshine Inn, Bonita Springs Utilities, Inc. is a nonprofit corporation, not a governmental agency. I think this was addressed in the memo that Mr. Richvale mentioned from Mr. Cloud with respect to the issue as to the Sunshine Law and public records. Bonita Springs Utilities is governed by the Florida statute relating to nonprofit corporations in co-ops like this. And there are specific rules with respect to when you receive a request for records from members, how to address them and what to do, and we follow those to the T. But we are not governed by the Florida Sunshine Law, which affects governmental agencies. With respect to the reclaimed water issue, that was also addressed by this council before, probably on more than one occasion, but the last time was a few years ago, and I think some of you were probably on this council, and this city hired special counsel to look at that issue, along with some other issues, which was the Sunshine Law also at that time. And it was addressed, it was looked at, you had special counsel come before you, and my recollection is they found no issues with respect to the reclaimed water agreement. I would also point out that that is specifically permitted in the tariff of BSU, which is a part of the franchise. It's an exhibit to it, the franchise, the three-party franchise agreement between the city of Bonita and Lee County. So we are following the tariff as to what is specifically allowed, and with all due respect to Mr. J, we disagree, and I think the memo that the city paid counsel to present to them a few years ago specifically supports our position there. Probably most importantly, all members are permitted to run for our board. And all members are permitted to go out and seek folks to support them when it's vote time. And just like this council, anyone who wants, as long as they're in good standing, is permitted to run for the board. And I would respectfully say that's how you make changes if you think things need to be changed. I would respectfully submit that this franchise renewal should be renewed. The franchise specifically provides for a 30-year, every time you get down to 25, BSU will do the notice of renewal, which this will actually, I think, be the 4th time. We've done that 3 times before. And we would respectfully request that the city council does approve this. I know the county is waiting for the city's approval. The county doesn't do it on an ordinance basis, it's just a resolution. So as soon as we make a determination that we get a hopefully positive response from the city on this, then we'll be getting it to the county and letting them know to put it on their agenda. Unless there's any questions or comments, that's all I have.
Okay, the 30-year, that allows BSU to borrow money at a better rate. It saves everybody money. Is that possible?
Very, very good point, Mr. Mayor. That's one of the primary reasons that we do this. It helps financing for capital improvements. It's common in the utility industry to finance long-term utility assets for as much as 30 years. And lenders, if your franchise doesn't go that long, isn't going to typically allow you to have the financing for that long of a period of time. So that is one of the major reasons that we try to keep this at the 30 years, because I think John has mentioned to you all in the past, and I don't recall if he mentioned it tonight, but the utility is always looking at rates and possible refinances and getting a new and a better rate, and keeping that franchise term out there helps greatly with respect to that. Another primary reason for it is many times the utility will be putting in new improvements for different subdivisions or different areas of Bonita Springs, and the only way it really becomes affordable for the members is if it's done on a payment basis as opposed to having to pay it all up front. And when I say payment basis, I mean over a period of time. The longer our franchise is, the longer it allows us to offer to our members financing periods with these special utility charges, some of which I think may be coming up soon with respect to, I think, some suggestions from the city.
How in the world would you know in a condominium? I live in a condominium. I have one meter. You have one vote. How could you have everybody in a condominium? Who knows who owns what? There's renters, there's transient. Who knows who is living in that condominium? How could you get a vote, a legitimate vote, without somebody saying, oh, we'll put these 50 people in here to vote, and we'll screw the election? Like
that's a very good point, Mr. Mayor. And you point out the practical reason that makes it difficult for Bonita Springs utilities to allow voting like that, because we don't know who the people are in all of the different condominium units when there's a master meter. The only record we have is the one that applied for an account and who pays the account. That's not really the legal reason, though. The legal reason is because of the tax opinion that I had mentioned to you earlier. But practically, that's a real good point, because it would be real difficult and probably real expensive to try to figure that out.
And it's less expensive for the condominium because they only have one meter?
I'll let Mr. Jenkins address that one.
A discount or something?
Correct.
Well, thanks, John. I think that answers some questions. 'Cause who knows lives in, I don't know who's in my condominium. There's only 24 units, but I don't know who from time to time they sell and buy and rent. Who knows who's voting? So I think that'd be a good point to bring up. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have some questions, I think, maybe for John. I appreciate your coming forward here, and I understand the importance of continuing the franchise over a longer period of time because of financing. But I think the long-term operation of Bonita Springs Utilities is of utmost importance to me. So this is probably an easy answer, but I haven't taken the trouble to try to research this, because on your slide where you said planning for our community's future, virtually everything that you have on that slide is really important. Do you have information about some of this stuff you did? I mean, is it on your website? Can we just go on and say, this is our report for sustainability? Or, I mean, what if somebody was interested in assessing the long-term operation of Bonita Springs Utilities? Because we're not just interested in today, we're interested in what's going to happen over 10, 15, 20 years. So that's why you need the franchise. I'm very happy to be voting in favor of this. extension of 5 years, but I wondered if there's a way to communicate some of the really good forward planning that you've already done. That was my question.
Yeah, fair question. I think we would have to put together some information. A lot of this is information we are happy to share. Our CIP budget is in our annual budget every year. We're going through that process. Our engineering department goes through that in quite a bit of detail as to what we plan to spend money on over the next 10 years. Our master plan, same thing. We've got a lot of planning documents in there that tell us, give us a recommendations as to where we should be replacing lines and facilities. Other information, less so. Our risk and resilience assessment. Since we're considered critical infrastructure, some of that information we don't make readily available to the public. We have like our cybersecurity efforts. We've got defense in layers, both physical and electronic and so forth. But we can certainly put together plenty of information, including we've done a lot of modeling for long-term water supply planning. We're very focused on issues like saltwater intrusion and how sea level rise will impact any potential impact to our wells. So we're happy to share any of that information. So,
Because, like, for example, I'm not a member because I live 64 units, so it goes to our condominium unit. So if I was to ask for that information, I guess conceivably, it wouldn't be available to me, or maybe it would be, or maybe it wouldn't. But if there was an easy way for me to do it and do the research, I would appreciate it personally, and I think that maybe the many people that use your water, whether they're in a condo or whether they have a meter, would be interested in that, because that's really what we want current water to be wonderful, which it appears to be, but we're really worried about what'll happen over time, and that's why when you renew this for another 5 years, I think those are the kinds of questions that we as a council should at least ask. And I know you've already done the work, it's just we don't know the answers. So if you could provide something, I'd appreciate it very much.
I'd be happy to do that. And just to clarify, if a member in a co-op has a question, all they need to do is sort of send it through the homeowners association or whatever entity is our member.
So that's the way we would do it. We would go to our manager and say, hey, send this to Bonita Springs Utility, and then they would distribute it to the manager. So there are ways to do this.
Yes.
That we could get the information that we might need. You know, maybe 1 out of 64 would be interested. The rest would say, what? Why are you bothering with this? You know, but there are people that I think are interested, and I, for one, am interested in like the work you've done with capital improvements. So, you know, where you're going to change the pipes and where the problems are. I mean, I sort of would like to know where that is. But thank you. I appreciate your presentation today.
As far as that gentleman, I forget his name, is he an attorney that talked about the meters, the new meters?
Yeah, I can respond first to Mr. Hirschhauser's comment. Do we have reclaimed water that can be made available for future development? For the most part, unfortunately, the answer is no. And the reason for that is reclaimed water is a limited resource. So on a day like today, this time of year at BSU, we're providing between 10 and 11 million gallons per day of water in our service area. We know from experience that about half of that will come back in our wastewater system. So that means we have about 5 million gallons of reclaimed water to dispose of. Now, the irrigation demand for areas that are currently served by reclaimed water is roughly twice that. So on a day like today, that irrigation demand from all of those customers who currently have reclaimed water is more like 10 million gallons. So our reclaimed water only provides 50% on average of the demand or the need from our current reclaimed water customers. And so that has to be supplemented with other sources.
So half of your water your potable water is being used for irrigation, is what you're saying?
Sometimes it's potable water.
You got 12 million gallons, and 6 of it comes back. The rest of it's evaporation and irrigation.
Right. So, I mean, we're happy to extend reclaimed water as far as we can, but since the current demand exceeds the supply, we're not in a position in all likelihood. That may change in the future, but so that future development would end up relying for irrigation or either on potable water supplies or on more likely local shallow wells. And then with regard to Mr. Pearson, this issue has come up recently. We are proceeding. We're probably 6-8 months into installation of our automated metering infrastructure. So this is radio communication between the meter and our offices, and it allows us to eliminate individual meter reading, eliminate the trucks on the road, the emissions and so forth. And we will soon have a customer portal so people will be able to look in on how much water they're using. It's a good tool for diagnosing leaks and for us to address unaccounted for water. All the information we've received indicates that these radio frequencies are safe. Unlike FP&L, for example, our meters are out at the street or at the meter box. The FCC regulates smart meters. All of their research indicates that these meters provide no greater risk than any ordinary home appliance, and in most cases significantly less than your cell phone or your laptop. Having said that, we'll look into Mr. Pearson's request. Lee County recently installed a similar AMI system. They do not allow members to opt out of that AMI program. Florida Power and Light does allow that. However, they charge a fee for it. There's a setup fee, and then I believe it's $13 a month additional cost to the customer for manually reading meters. So I can't tell you today whether or not we will allow for an opt-out like Mr. Pearson is requesting, but we will take a look at this issue that he's brought up.
Okay, Fred, your question?
I'd like to clarify something for the audience, and that is about the single meter on condos. The person that makes that decision is not BSU. It's a developer that builds the condo. Why do they go with a single meter? Developers usually go for the most economical solution. Now, once you have that single meter with a single line going in, branching off to each unit, to convert that building over to individual meters, you'd have to have a whole lot of extra taps in the line, and it costs a lot of money. And also, the way condos work, everybody pays the same water bill. So if you're there and use a lot of water, you pay the same bill as a guy that's not there very much. And that's just the way condos operate. I think if the guy from the state was still here, if he is, he could probably make a comment on that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just an observation, and for Derek, having gone through the agreement, there's a section 10 that deals with violation of the franchise agreement. But nowhere in there do I see that we have any authority over how BSU conducts their elections. And in fact, with respect to rates and charges of the utilities, that's all comes under the county. It says, whereas the county regulates the rates and charges of the utility, including approving utility water and wastewater tariffs. Do you anyway see us having a consumer protection duty with respect to BSU?
So there's utility rate structures and the regulation of utilities is a complicated issue. So there are certain utilities that fall within the Public Service Commission. There are other utilities like BSU that are regulated under Chapter 180, where usually it's a municipality, but often it's a private company, is authorized under a franchise agreement to operate within the community. The actual structure of BSU in this case is as a subscriber or owner-based organization. So every metered owner, I assume, has effectively a share in the overall corporation. That's why it's a nonprofit corporation. Our regulation of that, at least under Chapter 180 in our own regulation. Generally, we're looking at the public good, the benefit of running utility lines, the septic, the sewer conversions, all the things that we've been engaged in, the operational and rate-setting structure of an organization. We typically do not get into the internal operations or the bylaws and articles of incorporation, how they're internally structured. That'd be the same as how in land development we regulate condominium association documents to the extent that we make sure that they have certain sureties for the continual management of dedicated improvements and things like that. But we're not telling the HOA or the condo association, you have to have this exact quorum requirement or these exact election requirements. Now, in 2014, there was a question put forth to one of my partners before Ray Robinson became city attorney, and who looked at the issue. And in that opinion, he indicated that, yes, there's probably some ability where we have not been preempted by the state for the city to come up with additional regulations and governance regulations for a franchise utility. However, that was the ability to regulate an area. When we're talking about 11th hour items and discussions about specific structures and who gets to vote and things like that, we still require the standard requirements for any legislation that this body passes, which is a legitimate public purpose and actually a proposal that works. And so when I hear something like, well, you know, every HOA is made up of a number of members, so HOA members should automatically get one vote, that seems like something that could be a valid public purpose up front. But to do this at the last minute, I can throw up an easy contrary, which is we have a gated community that has an HOA with 1,000 members in it, but each member has a meter themselves. And the HOA has a meter, a master meter for irrigation. Does that mean that their collective vote is 2,000? There are all sorts of regulatory issues that would have to be explored to even consider what's being discussed by these public comments. So I'm not saying that they're outside the realm of your ability. What I'm saying is that I'm not prepared to address those kind of issues here today.
Thank you, Derek.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Yes, Fred.
My recollection is, I don't know if Derek has been our city attorney when this happened, but I know since I've been on council, we've at least one time voted on a rate increase proposed by a BSU.
Correct.
So even though the county votes, I think we do too.
Both entities vote on it.
And on HOAs, most people live in HOAs, live in single-family homes, and they all have a meter, so they all get to vote.
Okay, any other public comment? Where are we at here, Derek?
You've had public comment.
Make a motion to approve?
Correct.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have motion and second. Vote, please.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll drink to that. You got the best potable water.
Mayor and council, we have updated voting sheets for the historical board.
Okay.
What we had last time is everyone voted, but the actual results of the tally resulted in everyone having enough votes to pass on, but we only have 3 spaces. So what we're asking for, I'm sorry.
So we have 1 reappointment and 3 vacancies.
Correct.
So that makes 4.
No.
Just answer each.
You can only vote for 3.
Are there this is what I brought, are there 4 positions we're voting on?
You are voting on 4 positions. One is if you
That's what I
wish to
said.
retain a member, reappointment, and then you have 3 vacancies.
Didn't I say that?
So it's the first one?
Vote for 3, basically.
No, you
No, we
need to,
Okay, that's good.
you need
Answers
to vote, you need to place a vote under each
But
person's
if
name.
you voted yes in each one, 4 positions would be filled.
And you would have a full board,
And
correct?
that's right, that, is that what I said?
Isn't that what we did before?
No,
Yes, but somehow the votes came out.
because you said 3.
Last time we put choose 3, but that
You
was.
said
You
3.
said choose 3, which some folks,
Okay.
and you have one of the positions as a reappointment. So you, first is you need to decide whether you're going to reappoint the person.
And you're looking for a yes or a no.
The last one
Correct.
should have been choose 4.
For each question, yes or no.
time, listen to me.
All right, thank you, Derek. One more time, I get to vote for all four of these people.
If you want all four.
If you want if you would like to appoint all four, then you would put yes by all four.
Okay.
Yes.
But if I can only do three, then
What we did wrong the first
You should indicate yes
time.
or no, because you would, if we called each name, you would normally be voting yea or nay.
There you go. Is that right?
Are those yeses or no's?
Huh?
Are those yeses or no's? Yes, yes.
Yeses, yes, yes, yes. Vote for, no for, or no's? Come on, honey.
Here, I'm confused by this one.
And we move along here.
Okay, let's go ahead, while those are being tallied, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is second public hearing. To consider an amendment to the home rule development order between the City of Bonita Springs and 9161 BBR LLC and 9171 BBR LLC for the property at 9161 Bonita Beach Road, 9171 Bonita Beach Road. So this is the development agreement we reached with the adjoining property and their development. At the time, this development agreement achieved certain city goals as well as the property owner's goals. There was a question by the council what the project would ultimately look like. As the developer moved forward with designing their project, they actually now have renderings, which are in your packet, what the project looks like. They would also ask for an additional change to the height, given the designs calling for some additional height. And they are here to answer any questions if you have.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We would just
Any
need
other comment?
any public comment?
Public comment?
What is this?
Vote, Stephanie?
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilman Corey,
Aye.
Which one is it?
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Caramba,
Next door. Yeah, that's by Spanish Wells. Yeah, I got mixed up. Yes. Sorry.
Councilman Purdon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Yes.
Okay, 13E.
It's a public hearing to extend the duration of a resolution to reduce your building permit fees. So I'll ask John to come on up
That's
and
John.
explain what that is.
John.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So, last year we came before you to state that Florida statute had changed and you're only allowed to keep your building permit fee funded to the tune of what it takes for 1 year of operations. As a result, we needed to cut those fees because we were significantly above that, and we asked that you reduce those fees by 75% and also provide for a fixed fee for trade permits. You adopted those fees, and over the past year, we've been able to reduce that fee balance by over $1 million and are recommending that we continue this program to keep reducing those fees. You do have some backup in this that shows you the month-by-month reduction. And just as a note, if we had not reduced these fees, not only would the fee balance not have gone down, but it would have increased by about another $2 million. So what you are doing is putting us on the right path, and we recommend continuing that path.
Motion to approve?
Second. I had one question though.
Sure.
You said that we're still exceeding the balance. You didn't say by how much.
You are exceeding the
Would
balance
Would
by,
another year be probably adequate, or in another year, are we looking at doing this again, where we should look at more things like the shutters, windows, doors, and pool spas to reduce the permitting fees?
based on what we've seen this past year, we'll be doing this again. If you would like us to come back next month or so with a proposed reduction in those fees for shutters and pools and different trade permits to reduce those even further, I'd be happy to do that.
If that would help us
Do
get
you have
down
a
to
bottom line number that you're aiming for?
Approximately $2.4 million, or $2.8 million, I'm sorry.
And you got 8 million now?
We have, we had $8.98 million as of December 31st last year, and I think that we're looking at $7.94 million.
We have a long way to go.
And who controls that money?
The state controls where you can spend that money and has dictated that you can only spend it to enforce the Florida Building Code. So the salaries for building inspectors, trucks for building inspectors, laptops for building inspectors, those type of things are what is used for those fees.
There is a portion used by our code enforcement department when they're enforcing the building code.
But essentially, we're getting too many permits.
What about for rent and refurbishment?
Rent, yes.
Yes, the portion of the community development office that's used for building can be used for that as well. And so when you see some of the things we bring before you for budget that are split, there's a reason why it's split. There's a portion of it that can be pulled out of the building permit fee money, and there's a portion of it that cannot. So that's why you see in certain occasions 2 pots of money being funded for a
I
particular
see 2 piles that add up to about 4 million, something like that. They're coming into your office, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, out of that, I'm rounding off to 4 million. How much you're getting 2 million something?
Like 2.8 for building.
2.8 for CHLM2 or?
Correct. And
the
then,
rest of it goes back to the city or goes into this lockbox type thing? Or?
all of the money we take in for building permit fee revenues goes into the building permit revenue account that is held by the city. We then receive the 2.8 million to enforce the Florida Building Code as the building department. There's other portions of it that for code enforcement, other things that chip around the edges of it, for other portions that enforce the Florida Building Code. But the only money that can be spent out of that fund has got to be used to enforce the Florida Building Code.
So do you pretty much cover your own bills?
Yes, sir.
The taxpayers paying your
The
department or whatever?
The only source of funding for the building department is building permit fee revenue.
And that's enough?
Yes, sir. In fact, we're trying to reduce that fee amount.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, so if everybody's amenable, I'd like to have us take a look to see if we can do more of the residential permits, like the accessory buildings, fence, dock, shoreline, windows, shutters, doors, pool spas, things like that to help out the residents while we're trying to drop this fund balance.
Everything outside of the residential building and commercial building, come back with that?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Very good, good for the people, we the people. Yeah, good idea. Anybody, we got to vote on that, I think?
No, we have direction, we'll come back.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
you do
only gonna hold a public hearing now, open the public comment, and vote on this
Correct.
continuance.
You're only voting on this
Public.
proposal, the proposal that Councilmember Gibson will bring back.
Okay, public comment? Seeing none, did you, somebody, I make the motion to approve.
There's a motion.
It's already
There's-
taken care of?
Yep, Corey and Carr.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Corumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye. Okay,
Oh, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and announce no, Carly has got the results.
okay.
Okay, so Alan Glazier is reappointed, and the 3 applicants are appointed, so we now have a full board.
Very good, very good. And we're looking for an architect.
And we're looking for an architect.
Okay.
Okay.
And we can expand the board if we need to.
Correct.
Okay.
So the next item, Mr. Mayor and Council, is the rooftop at Riverside. And I believe the Magnuses are here too, as well. Through the, oh, I'm sorry. Before we move forward, we need a motion confirming the results of the
So moved.
historic preservation.
Second.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Corumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay, what do we gotta do here?
All right, well, I got a couple things today. So today, the first one is gonna be a request to amend the development agreement, or the proposed draft development agreement, which will be executed at closing. This is for the rooftop at Riverside. If you recall, the food truck parks originally had proposed limited hours, 11 to 11:30, during the RFP process. That was carried over into the development agreement, but through conversations with the public and through the special exception process, it is my understanding that the new property owners, the Magnuses, would like to expand those hours to 9 a.m. Till midnight. And so to do that cleanly, the best way to do that would be change the development agreement.
Motion to approve, but
Second.
also, why would we set arbitrary times on a business? I mean, any other business that happened to build on that street can open any hours they want, provided that they, sound ordinance, other things like that, but, I could be open 24 hours selling bikes if I wanted to.
Right, this is specific to the consumption on premises, essentially. And these were,
But if they wanted to have the food trucks open later
Or earlier.
or earlier,
that wouldn't normally be something that we would regulate. That was just something, their hours of operation that they had laid out themselves in their in the original development agreement. So this was self-imposed initially, but
Yeah.
in order to change it, it would require our
but
approval.
COP, like anywhere else, if they wanted to, they could stay open until 2 is the law as far as alcohol.
Except that they voluntarily
Yeah.
requested a reduced hours when they went through the RFP process. So essentially, this is a contract, but it has nothing to do with our regulations at all. This is a contract, a development agreement between them and us. They are requesting to change it, and they require the city council's approval to do so.
Go ahead, Amy.
No, thank you for asking that question, because this is sort of like, I was confused about typical operation, all right? So you already answered part of this, but it was my understanding that the reason why there were some time constraints here was that because this is an outdoor operation, do we not have already existing regulations that would suggest that there is a different way of handling businesses that have an outdoor operation? That's my question, because I'm a little shaky on that.
I'll leave that to either John or Mike to address.
In between here, I've asked the question before, are these trucks there 24, 7 days a week? Or do they come and go whenever they want and leave oil patches on the sidewalk?
That would be a question for the Magnuses.
That's the question for them. Yes, John?
You are authorizing them to be there 24/7. Should they choose to bring them in and out, that's an operational question that we're not regulating. In terms of ordinances that regulate how the business would operate, because it's outside, they would need to meet all the standards, both standards of the noise ordinance. So you have both the maximum decibel level from an adjacent property line, but you also have the irregular noise that can become annoying or irritating. So both of those standards would need to be met. In terms of traffic, other things, no, ma'am.
But that's typical that as Mike had suggested, that's what we would do for any business, right? So there's no special, I think what you're saying is that there shouldn't be any guidelines along the time. I mean, in a normal interaction with a business, is that what you're saying?
There would not be, correct.
Okay, and it doesn't matter
if you
that
wish
it's
to
a-
propose
Yeah.
removing the restriction on hours entirely, I'm sure they can answer that question as well.
Yeah, I don't see why they'd have to come up to us if they wanted to change their hours or expand them. I mean, I can understand if they applied for till midnight for the COP and then wanted to expand it, they'd have to, reapply for that. But as far as, why can't we just say whatever hours they wind up doing?
That is up to you to decide. Well, again, because this went through the RFP process, this was a voluntary restriction placed on them in order to, I assume, address any concerns about off-site impacts to the community downtown.
Well, could we?
That's why it was not specifically addressed in the special exceptions, because this was already something covered in a contract with the
It might be useful, I mean, I appreciate the 9 to, I understand why you want to do it early, because they have breakfast or whatever, some have coffee or whatever. But it might be good to put in some time limitation, since they already offered that, and say they could sunset it after we see how they operate for a couple of years, and if nobody goes nuts over it and everything is fine, then it would just automatically sunset. I think that might give us the opportunity for some protection to the surrounding residential areas, and then go forward with that. Because the food truck park is different. It's a different operation than what we envision with our form-based code and everything. So there might be some reason to handle it slightly differently.
I would say that's a question to ask ask the Magnuses if they have any objection. 'Cause I can't go beyond what they've asked for.
It's a contract, but we as a council have the ability to set some kind of policies.
No, you would not, unless it's in our land development code or as a condition of their special exception.
But if
So-
they're offering in the contract, we could just add, this is good for 2 years and then it sunsets.
As I said, this is a contract, so you're free to offer any counter offer. You're free to reject their offer to amend it. It is simply a negotiation between two parties to the extent it is in the
And
contract.
they don't have to be open that hour. They don't have
Correct.
to be open at any time.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be around long if they weren't open
You
at
know,
all,
they could
but
close for a month in September, like a lot of businesses do.
I'm gonna leave it to
They're
them.
not regulated.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, Amy, you're not saying that sunset where it would go back to the 11 to 11:30.
that-
It would
no
remove,
time
it would remove the hours
So
when it sunsets.
let them work, figure out how you run your business, because I'm not sure you've run a food truck park in the past, so you might be in a learning process as we are. And if you're willing to do it from 9 to midnight, I say, keep it in for 2 years, and at the end of it, as long as it didn't blow up, then it would just disappear, and then you could run your business whatever way you want in the future. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
That sounds great.
All right, I mean, that's what, I think you could satisfy, the reason why I think you offered it, no, I'm not gonna speak for you, but it seems that people were concerned about how that was gonna operate in that particular location, and so you responded and said, well, we'll protect you, and this is what you did.
Yes, Jesse.
Can I ask a question? Is this in there currently? Or are we trying to add the 9 to 12?
We're trying to.
They have 11 to
adjust
11:30 now.
11 to 11, so we want to make it a larger window for their request and then cap it at 2 years and then it goes away.
Correct, I mean, that's.
And
what-
they can do
it's a-
whatever they want.
It's a
Okay,
compromise.
and then completely open. Okay, yeah, I'm good with
They
it.
were kind enough to say, let me protect the people, and they did it, right?
Yes, and it was also, over time, we've gotten comments from people that have, at the zoning board meeting, I think Derek was there as well. One of the gentlemen on the zoning board suggested, they said, hey, we have the church in the park. We really think that it would be nice to be able to have trucks open for breakfast and that type of thing as well. And so we thought, okay, well, if we're gonna do this, let's go and just make the adjustments so that, we'll have a little bit of flexibility.
And we will too.
Yes, sir. Do you currently own a bar?
No, I do not. We have hired consultants, and
They're a different breed, I tell you.
yes,
I
and
spent 15 years in a bar.
yeah,
They're no fun sometimes.
no, and
Closing time.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we're asking for these later times, but we may find that we don't need those, or we don't use those. We're more family oriented than we are. We aren't looking for the late night crowd typically. But if there is a particular event or something like that that might make sense for us to be open, we would like to have that opportunity.
I don't know, in Florida, you're not allowed to serve alcohol to an alcoholic, is that right? You wouldn't know.
The FORCOP is going to guide all of our rules and operations, and we'll follow all the rules that we have to follow to maintain our FORCOP alcohol license.
Because you're gonna have some alcoholics, and I don't know how you tell if a person's an alcoholic or not. Because in Pennsylvania, you're not allowed to serve alcohol to an alcoholic.
We will-
I don't know, you'll have to figure that out.
We will certainly follow the COP 4 license, because obviously if we don't, we would lose that license, and that would be detrimental to the business.
Very good, thank you. To clarify, anybody else?
So could we move this with the provision that we would adopt include the 9 to midnight, but then it says, write it that after 2 years, provided there's no issues, it would just
I
set
believe
sunset.
you have a motion and a second, so it would be up to the motion and the seconder if they want to add that as a friendly
I
amendment.
made the motion, so I'll amend my motion to do that.
I second it, I'll amend it, and if they want to change it again, they just come back.
Right.
Because we'll
So,
be flexible too.
The way I would, yes, it will always be available for amendment at any time, but the way it'll sunset automatically unless extended.
Right, good,
Perfect.
thank you.
Go vote.
Vote.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba? Aye. Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Stanmeyer?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, council
Thank
and
you all.
staff. Thank you.
So the next item is another one of mine, and this is authorize the city manager and the mayor to execute the opioid participation agreement. So I haven't really discussed this at any length in the past, but the Attorney General's office, previously under Pam Bondi, and now under Ashley Moody, have been engaged in a multi-state class action litigation against I'll just say Big Pharma and all the distribution companies involved, relating to the impacts on local governments, the state of Florida, other regional resources resulting from the effects of opioid addiction. Early in the year, we were reached out to by the Attorney General's office in order to effectuate a national opioid settlement that is moving forward. They were looking to coordinate as many stakeholders as several cities in Florida and counties have been engaged in active litigation themselves to get on board with this class action settlement. The number of cities that get in, the higher the amount of settlement dollars that come out. The amount that was previously allocated to the city of Bonita Springs was infinitesimally small, something like $11,000. That amount has significantly increased up to $44,000 if there is broad-based sign-off. In addition, as part of the incentive structure, which has moved more steadily in favor of the local governments, even the county, by getting at least 50% of the cities within the county to sign on, gets an extra $10 million into their coffers for this. Now, what this money can be used for is directly for a list of approved, in the materials, approved resources for drug treatment, first responders, other things. You know, many cities like the city of Bonita Springs don't have those resources, but we can take the money that we have, give it to other programs, and cooperative work with other communities to make a bigger impact. So what I'm asking for is there's a deadline tentatively set for January 2nd for everyone to sign off. Less than 50% of Florida communities have signed off. From what I gather, that's because they just haven't got the information yet. So I think that deadline will be extended, but what I'm asking for in the interim is for authorization for the manager and the mayor to sign off on all the participation forms, indicating that we are moving forward in that direction.
Oh, motion to approve.
Second.
Yes, how much is it gonna cost you to do all this paperwork? Or how much is it gonna cost the city? Is there a cost involved to the city to
The only
meet all
cost,
the paperwork?
the cost that has been involved to the city has been essentially the cost of reviewing the documents. And I have borne that cost out against all my government clients, so that it's basically a fourth of what it would be normally. But it's insignificant in comparison to the amount that we would be receiving. We are not drafting the documents. This is all coming from the Attorney General's office. The only other additional authority that I may request, it has been both approved, requested, and not requested, whether or not we require a resolution of the council. The latest draft does not require that. If that changes before January 2nd, I would ask authorization to sign a very generic resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the two documents that are actually in as provided. So,
Motion, yeah.
Add that on.
Yes.
There's a motion and a second. I guess we have a vote.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Stanmeyer?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
and then the only last item I have is not on the agenda. I just want to let you know that looking to see if it's done, we should be closing today on the Angler's Paradise piece of property, northwest corner of Bonita Beach
Okay,
Road.
one little question. That property where the rooftop is they paid for that yet?
No.
No.
That's closing this month as well.
Okay, thank you. I forgot to ask. Okay, 15A, city manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At this time, I'd ask John Dahmer to come forward. He's going to be presenting the cost recovery provisions in ordinance 19-03 and applying that to the ICPR modeling.
Good morning again. As was just announced to you, this was one of the programs the city asked to implement about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And during that time, actually once it was passed, we had to figure out how to do it and get the process up and running, and those reviewing it familiar with what we were looking for in the standards of development orders. Since that time, we've got a process down, we've operated with some efficiencies, and we've been able to make this a much more predictable process for everybody that turns information in. We believe that now it's in a position where no one would have to pay for us to learn and to create this process. So what we're asking for is the existing cost recovery fee standard allows for a new resolution to be created for newer processes that come online, and we would ask the council authorize this to be one of those processes to be applied for cost recovery.
Can you tell me what a node is, and a 10-acre, and a 100-acre, and $100 an hour, and
the node,
a little bit lost in there.
What we're looking at is a model, and I'll give you the very limited and generic description because I don't know any more than that, because I don't run the models. But the nodes are basically where drainage comes together, and they look at how the volume of that water interacts with each other and how it proceeds till its ultimate outfall. And so depending upon the size of a project, the location of a project, or the impact of a project will depend upon the area that needs to be studied or the nodes that they need to include in their study. And so what I included there was some information I asked our engineers to provide to me. What are you looking at? How does this normally shake out? When somebody comes in for an application, what do we normally expect to see now that we've seen enough of these to know? And so that the number of hours tries to break down the size of a project versus what you could typically expect. And I say typically because depending on where it is in the city, that number can change as well. Other portions of the city are very easy to operate in. Other portions of the city is a little more difficult to analyze, and that difficulty obviously equals more time. So the hourly breakdown, the cost breakdown, that's all just to provide you a little bit more information so you understand what we're looking at.
And these specialists are picked at random, or?
No, sir. These are two people familiar with this model and run it both as a review for the city and also for private clients. They're familiar not only with what we're looking for in terms of review, but hopefully they've learned a couple of tricks to look for when somebody turns something into them.
Okay. I heard a motion and a second. Is that true?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any more comment? Vote?
Councilman Purton?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Hey, we're getting towards the end here.
Mayor, I just have a couple of other updates. One is to, we had sent out a notification that the state of Florida will be concluding their monoclonal clinics across the state, but many of the local health departments are picking that role up. Our interlocal agreement with the county allows them to continue to move forward with no changes. So the Lee County Health Department is going to continue to operate the monoclonal service at the old library.
At unlimited time?
As of
Forever,
right
or
now, we're gonna evaluate it each month. Staff to staff will be evaluating each month.
Do we make any money off of this, or we just
No, but
break even?
we do not lose any money. While this is under operations, Lee County is covering the expenses of the building for us while this is happening.
Okay.
Marlene, could we get a report on the number of clients who are being served there, please?
We can find out from the state, and then we'll have to work with Lee County Health Department on. And the other item I would like to request is the January 19th is a 9 a.m. meeting. Representative Adam Botana would like to participate in your meeting virtually. He'll be in Tallahassee. If it's possible, we were looking to move that meeting to 5:30 p.m. so he could participate. He'd like to provide some updates on some conversations he's been having with the Water Management District. We also understand that board member Chauncey Goss would like, if he's available, is trying to attend that meeting as well.
In Tallahassee?
No, he would, board member Chauncey Goss would be here in person. That is the plan if he can be there, but at least
Adam will be up in Tallahassee.
Adam will be virtually, yes.
Okay. You don't need a vote on that?
I don't need a
I mean,
motion, I just wanted to
we do need a
confirm.
vote on that, I think.
No, I just need to confirm direction from council that you're comfortable with us.
It's a definite thing, change it in the calendar, or?
Change it in the calendar?
We will change the if it's okay, we'll change the calendar, and if for some reason he can't participate, we'll just leave it at 5:30 to avoid any confusion for the
Okay.
public.
Thank you.
And have we canceled, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yes, dear.
Thank you. Have we canceled the first meeting in January?
You did,
Okay.
and we said
And-
that if we had anything pressing, that we would say that or ask for a special meeting. As of right now, we're scheduling everything around the current dates you have, so we can meet the needs with the dates we have.
And are we gonna do a workshop?
Yes, so as of right now, we have 2 workshops that we will need to schedule with you that we're gonna look through as we get more information out. One is, we will need a public workshop on redistricting for the city, and then also we'll be looking for a city council workshop. That will be the first one is a public workshop, where you would just attend as individuals, council members,
Yes.
followed up by a workshop with you as well. The second we'd be doing is a city council workshop on our CIP program, because we want to start planning for the next fiscal year.
And is that open to the public?
Oh, yes, but you would be seated as council during that workshop.
Like up here?
Correct.
And the other one would be down
The other one is it would be a public workshop, which is typical where you just all attend as council members and you didn't necessarily provide feedback at those meetings because of sunshine. You would just you would be able to be a member, basically acting as a member of the public in that workshop.
And both would be held here?
Correct.
Okay, let's start with the council and mayor's reports. I'm sorry. Laura, would you start us off tonight? We're gonna bounce around a little bit.
Okay, well, thank you. First, prayers go out for the folks who were hit in the Midwest and the South Tennessee area with the tornadoes. Devastation's incredible, and so our prayers do go out to all. I thought Holiday in the Park was terrific, and Laura did a great job. And the mayor did a terrific job lighting the tree. It went off on the one punch, which is always nice. And that's all.
Okay, now I'm gonna go to Jesse next, please.
Actually, I don't have anything for us.
Oh, oh, you've been busy. Okay, all right, let's go Fred now.
Well, I want to echo Laura's comments about the lighting ceremony. It was really good. I was amazed how many people showed up.
Unreal, yeah.
Touching on the other thing she talked about, this tornado, I was in a record-setting killer tornado at the crosshairs, at the center of the crosshairs. And it's really a unique experience. It can change your outlook on life, in fact. All that destruction will stay there for months and months, possibly years, before it's removed.
Mm-hmm.
So now the other thing is on our facility, on the Regeneron, we need to talk to them to see if they're gonna insist on closing on Saturday and Sunday. Originally, it was open 7 days a week. Now, I know why they're doing it. There's lack of customers. But what's critically important, and I'm getting this from Lee Healthcare, this is not a Fred Forbes comment. Number one, the best thing you can do if you do get COVID, in spite of the fact that there's a pill you can take that supposedly minimizes your effects, the Regeneron is right now considered to be the best solution, not the pill. Most important is if you get tested and you test positive, getting that Regeneron in the first 24 hours gives you a big leg up. That doesn't mean if you have to wait to 36 hours, don't get it. But it starts working for you as soon as you get it. So the quicker you get it, the less ill you get, the less likely you're going to go to the hospital, the less likely, if you got a lot of underlying conditions, that you might die. So we need to make sure that we've got something set up maybe, I don't know whether we talk to the county, probably the county and the health department. There's gotta be a way that when that place is closed, that if somebody tests positive Friday night, they've got a phone number to call and they can go get a shot.
That's a good idea. How about putting it up at, the north part of the city there?
Yeah, there's gotta be.
NCH up there,
Well, and
smoking it.
you got Lee Healthcare, you have NCH. I'm not sure they're set up to handle that. If they are, that's a work, but we gotta have something where if you get it.
Good point, Fred.
And we also need to get it out to all these people that do this testing, that they recommend it too, so that they get a piece of paper handed to them. You need to go get a Regeneron.
Well,
Within what you can do legally. You can't play doctor, but.
well, I'm gonna add to that, Fred. I have neighbors, a husband and a wife. They both got COVID and they went and they got Regeneron. And the one recovered, the other one ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks.
Right. There's none of them, there's nothing that's 100%
That's for
guaranteed.
sure. But at least the wife did not get sick, and he almost died. So it's pretty dangerous stuff out there. Amy, would you like to add to?
I'm going to do a quick summary of, I have a couple things to say, but again, my heart and prayers go out to all the victims of this tornadoes in the other states, and I'm glad that Governor DeSantis is sending some of our people there to help with the rescue mission as we all join together in community to assist people who are in need. I did attend the legislative lunch, and it was interesting because I sat at the table with Jeff Estes, who's the principal at our local high school, and the young girl who sang the national anthem is from our school. And she did a remarkable job, and it was really interesting to have some conversation with both her mother and her teacher there. So we have wonderful young people that are doing great things, and I think we should make a point of recognizing the great effort that they did. And I hope that we could have her sing the national anthem at one of our events, but we can get her name from there. And I think
I passed it on
yeah,
to Laura.
I think she's like a junior or something. I don't think she's a senior, but anyway, but
No, she's a senior.
She's a senior, but we have some very accomplished students that I was so pleased to be there, and it was fun to talk to Jeff Estes about some of the problems he has in running a school in the environment of COVID. I too enjoy the Holiday Inn Park, and that was already mentioned. I attended the Art and Public Places Board yesterday or something, and we're continuing to work on some sculptural art pieces that you'll hear about in the future. And I'm waiting for them to move all the sculptures around to the places where they should be. And I know Matt is working diligently to get it all done at the same time. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll see some good changes, including in our own city hall, because I'm waiting to see Glassinator be right there, and Secret Bench moved on 41. I also attended the Horizon Council Executive Meeting, and there was a couple of interesting things that came out of that I spoke to Arlene about. The rebranding out of the what is that called? The visitors. What is that? Visitors
Convention
Bureau. Yeah, Convention Bureau has done a rebranding of actually the Southwest Lee County, basically, and they're going to, the new name for the rebranding is Fort Myers Beaches, Islands, and Neighborhoods. And we are included under the neighborhood category there, and they have a nice marketing piece and a big website. The reason why I mentioned it is because each community is going to have their own page. You could click on it, and then we go and we're able to market what are assets to bring people into the neighborhood. So I think we should be proactive there to make sure our page is pretty good, because I think we have an awful lot to market, and that we should work with them in the future. And just to, Southwest Lee County is doing very well by all of the indicators that was presented at the meeting. They're very active in the sports, and lots of people are moving down here, and it's a good time for us. So it was a very positive meeting. And I think that's it.
Okay, Mike?
I'm good, thank you.
You all right? How about Chris?
I'm good.
You're good? Merry Christmas, y'all. Any public comment?